you here in just a second. We're actually sort of recapturing yesterday's team totals, and then once we get that, I'll pass those back to you. And matter of fact, I see Cole coming at the very moment. Yes, I did. Yes, thank you for that too. Thank you. All right, here we go. Yesterday's quiz scores by team, and actually, each of you did good. You did good yesterday. There have definitely been days that's been a lot worse, and days that's been a lot better. All the scores were in the 80s yesterday, so that was good. At the bottom of the barrel, at an 81, were the apostles, which obviously means the disciples, believers, and fishers are happy about that. That's what that means, right? Gotta help you out a little bit here this morning, I understand. All right. In third place, 2 points better, is the believers. Matter of fact, I'm going to go on. This is Tuesday, I know. All right, this is Tuesday. We haven't even looked at the scores except for the 1 point the Fishers got yesterday, and of course, that'll be the last time they're in first place this week. So, you know, that game yesterday, Kick and Chase, was wow. It was rough for the Fishers. So, but you were in for. At least you can tell your grandchildren, hey, we were in first place on a day at Greenbrier Baptist Youth Camp. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and go out on the limb, and I'm going to make a prediction who's going to win this week. Okay? Yeah. I mean, okay, this is Tuesday. And I noticed this yesterday. Okay, I noticed this yesterday, and usually this kind of a indication, I think, is indicative of what's going to happen in the future. The 2024 Greenbrier Baptist Youth Camp champion team this year on Friday will be crowned. Will be the believers. Okay. Now you say, well, where do you get that from? Two things. Yesterday during pep rally, the believers were the most energetic. I mean, they were the ones. They were the most energetic. And did you notice yesterday when we had when the music when the music died yesterday because the phone went dead? You know who it was that exerted leadership in that very moment, in a crisis moment? Who sort of stepped forward, just very impromptu? The believers did, right? Now, I think, and so I'm really basing this prophecy on, I think energy has a lot to do with success, scoreboard success. I really do. I think it translates. And when you show energy and excitement, that'll just carry you a step or two beyond sort of the norm. And now, I do think having people, influential people in leadership positions, captains, co-captains, I think that certainly goes a long way as well. But again, I'm going on the limb. Now, you know, I mean, I'll be honest with you. I really don't even like the believers. Okay, so well, maybe that's not exactly true, but I can't remember the last year I actually pulled for the believers to win. I mean, that's how long ago we're going back. Usually.
Not too many years ago, I was a believer. So
That's why. Exactly. Point proven right there. Exactly. That's probably where my hatreds for the believers began, actually, right there and there. So anyway, years and years ago, I was a disciple fan because Jonathan was a disciple. And then there was a brief time I was a believer fan because Jordan was a captain of the believers. And then, of course, the last in the modern history era, I've been an Apostles fan because Jody Beth captained that, and I don't think I've ever been a Fisher fan, so as far as that goes. And then the Saints, I mean, who cares about the Saints, anyway, but I do, listen, I appreciate energy because that resonates with me. I feel like I'm an excitable person. I get excited about some insignificant things at times, and that's just the way I'm wired. I'm all or nothing. I'm over the top kind of person, and if we're not going to go to the extreme, I don't want to do it at all. So I'm just sort of that way, and so I do appreciate energy and excitement and enthusiasm. Few things. This is one of those wisdom nuggets. Few things are ever accomplished without enthusiasm. Few things. I mean, you don't win championships without enthusiasm. You don't accomplish things at the workplace without enthusiasm. And you're not effective. I'd say that you're not effective in ministry without enthusiasm. Unsaved people are not attracted to boring. Okay? I mean, they want to know, is Jesus Christ real? Yeah, and if he's real in your life, there will be in theos. Theos, God, N-E-N, within, God within. That's the origin of the Latin word enthusiasm. It is a reflection of God dwelling within a person. And so, anyway. So, now continuing our ladder here, 81 for the apostles, 83 for the believers, 1 point better than that, at 84, in second place, which, by the way, first place is 4 points better than second place, at 88. So, but in second place, at 84, the Fishers. Which, of course, all of you that are screaming and shouting are disciples because you're at an 88. So congratulations for winning the day yesterday, for sure. All right, these are the ones that after one day are in Club Happy Meal, or at least you're not in it yet, but you are on your way to being a member of Club Happy Meal, if you can continue your perfection, 20 out of 20 or 22 out of 20. We have, we'll start at the bottom. We actually have 3 apostles. So you can imagine what the rest of your scores were. I mean, if you finished last, you got 3 of you that made 20s. Woo! Abby Day is there. Bella Kirkham is there. And Hannah Hall is there. Next, the believers. One believer is in Club Happy Meal, heading that way at least. Ava Stover. The Fishers had 5. Yeah.
Had or half?
They have 5 in heading towards Club Happy Meal. Ophelia, 2-time Club Happy Meal member. Reagan Hefner. The baby brother of Kobe, Keaton Roselle. Owen Wolf. And Sarah Oakes. Wow. So that's very good, Fishers. And shockingly, right? The team that scored the best yesterday, the disciples, had nobody. Now, what tells you that nobody is brilliant and genius on their team, but nobody is dumb on their team, right? I mean,
They weren't dumb yesterday.
Sounds like they cheated.
sounds like they are very good schemers, right? So that was weird, but yet impressive at the same time as this all shakes out. So nine of you are right now heading towards Club Happy Meal. Two-time Club Happy Mealer Avery Lilly did not make it on day one. So she'll have many more years to try to get there as well. So, all right. So that's the scores from yesterday. So come get your pass them back out. What team? What team? What team? Issues. Yeah. Yes. Kevin Smythe.
They probably look at
All right, I think I'm all together and ready. Oh, this was found out in the field, was it? Oh, Matter of fact, the name is on it, but no team name has been put on it yet.
This might be a good reminder.
This may be a fisher, you know? I mean, maybe. I don't know. Yes, this might be a good reminder. Exactly. Remember, you got to have 3 things in your possession when you come into morning Bible study. One of them is what? Bible. What's the other? Booklet. What's the other? It starts with a B. Ballpoint pen. That's right. Yeah, exactly. So, or pencil. A pencil. Got to have those 3 things. There will be a day or 2 where we actually take attendance on that, so to speak, and you'll be rewarded or deducted by your success or failure at that. Yes, I see you, Casey. So, he wants his pop. You know, for about 2.5 years, I never thought Casey had a sin nature. I just thought he was born perfect. And then about 6 months ago, he became a sinner. So, just want to make sure you all understand everybody is born at birth with a sin nature, all right? So, anyway, all right, so Jackson Boblet. Boblet, is that right? Boblet? Jackson, huh? Jackson B. Jackson, where's Jackson? Where are you? Yeah. What team you on, Jax? Apostles. Yeah. It's a day of grace today. All right. Exactly, day of grace today. So, let me make one more announcement, and then we'll get going in our time in the Word. I have a good friend from English Baptist Church. That's our church, my church that I'm at. That's coming to camp today and is staying the rest of the night, and will be here all day tomorrow. His name is John Lucas, and he's, I'm guessing maybe 38, and he's bringing, that's 04. There you go. Okay, he's 40. So anyway, I'm not sure that's so significant, 38 or 40. But anyway, the point is, John Lucas is going to be here, and he's bringing his 5-year-old son, James, or sometimes we call him Jamesy. And so he's coming all the way from Carrollton and left this morning, and is going to be here for a couple days. I invited him to come, he and his dad. His dad and I are very good friends. And his dad is not able to come this week at any. But John, he worked shift work in a factory and so forth. So he had these 7 days off. And I said, man, I'd love for you to come. I think you'd really enjoy it. He enjoys outdoors, camping kind of stuff. And I just want him, somebody from back home, to be able to understand how special Greenbrier Baptist Youth Camp is. You know, it'd be one thing for me to go back home and talk about Greenbrier Baptist Youth Camp. I'm supposed to. But for him to go back and say, hey man, this place, it really is a cool place, that has a lot more power to it. So I'm excited for John to be here. John is a Marine. He used to say was a Marine, but then I found out very quickly, if you're a Marine, you're always a Marine. You don't want to make that mistake around a Marine. So anyway, I was corrected very quickly. But he has been in Afghanistan, served there a term, and then he also served another tour of duty in, what's the other place over there? Yeah, it's like another stand. Pakistan, yes. Yeah, I think it was Pakistan. Anyway, so I just want to tell you, he was there I mean, live bullets, knocking door to door there in downtown Islamabad or whatever it, I mean, he was. And so when I asked him about his story, he told me that. And let me tell you, I had respect for John up to here, but after he told me that story, I mean, it went all the way to the ceiling. I have so much respect for John Lucas, and so he helps out with the youth on Wednesday nights, so when you see John here today and tomorrow, make sure you say hey, and make sure you can say thank you for your service. John told us about your service as a Marine. Anyway, but I hope you'll extend yourself to him when you see him, because he doesn't know anybody here other than obviously Shelley and myself. Well, he probably knows Melinda and Greg, probably. So anyway, but like I say, he left at 6 o'clock this morning. Should be here around noon time. John, Lucas, and James. Tomorrow and the rest of the week, Kevin is going to be doing the review like he normally would. He and I didn't have that conversation before we got to camp, so but he'll pick that up tomorrow, and of course that'll save you and I about 10 minutes probably of time, because he's more concise than I am. All right, yesterday, well, matter of fact, just go ahead and take your Bibles, go to Judges 14.
There.
Whoa, very good. Very good. And let's talk about yesterday before we get into today. Yesterday we talked about his birth. Although the 13th chapter the 13th chapter of Judges dealt more about his mom and his dad and the family that he grew up in, more so than it did actually his birth. We're only given basically about 2 verses. I think it's 23 and 24. 23 is born. 24, God begins to tap in his heart and life. And the Spirit of God moves in and moves on him. And certainly he responds to that calling, if you will. And but he grew up in a godly family. And we said yesterday that you can grow up and do right and be right, even if your surroundings are godless, if you come from a godly family, that influence there in your life. However, we also said, did we not? A lot of you missed it on the quiz, that the opposite of that can be true as well. And Jephthah was a judge, I think it's chapter 8, is an example of somebody who did not grow up in a godly family. But they were influenced by godliness outside their family, and they used that negative home experience for a positive in their life. And so you can turn out right. I guess maybe in some ways the bottom line is that smidge of godly influence around your life, whether it's at home, at school, on the ball team, in youth group, wherever that place where God's presence is manifested regularly kind of thing. As long as you can get into that space, you probably, certainly you have the potential of being influenced for Jesus Christ and the ability to turn out right. The greatest influence in your life is who? Who's the greatest, in most people's life, who's the greatest influence in your life? Your family, your parents, right? Your mom and dad. Mother's Day, a lot of times we talk about how great mom is, and I love you, mom, and things like that. And of course, on Father's Day, we express our love and appreciation for fathers, our fathers, and we probably are a compilation of our mom and dad. Sometimes we say, well, you get your whatever characteristic, that from your mom. And boy, you get your humor from your dad, or whatever that may be. But a lot of times we refer to our family surroundings as that which influences us in who we are becoming as an individual. And so you can be right, do right, even in a culture that is wrong and ungodly. And then we talked about you ought to turn out right, not only because of the surroundings that are godless, but your family's godly, but you ought to turn out right if God blesses you in your life, in the early ages of your life. And I would say that's probably true of most people here, if not everybody here. God has been good to you. I mean, just the fact that we live in the United States of America where we still do have freedoms. I mean, that's a blessing. That's a God blessing. I mean, you could have been born in, Texas. Yes, you could have been born in Texas. That's right. You could have been born, but God allowed you to be born in America and the freedoms you have. And you listen, He's blessed you with a Bible. I imagine everybody in here has a Bible or more. I think I have 53 Bibles in my office at church. 53. One day I counted all the Bibles in our church building, and it was like 284 Bibles just in the structure of English Baptist Church. We are blessed, but there are some countries, some places, they don't have Bibles. And so we're blessed. And if God has blessed you with the Bible, guess what? God's blessed you. So you ought to turn out right. And it is far worse to turn out wrong when you have been given so much opportunity to turn out right. For to whom much is given, much is required. And as I ended yesterday, I say again by way of review, I expected. I mean, particularly if you've been under the old tin roof, if it's your first year under the old tin roof, I still expect it. Maybe not quite as much as I expected from others who have been, in our gathering under the old tin roof, because I know every year that you come under this structure here, you're hearing God's Word being taught and preached in a way that is relevant and applicable in your life as a 16-year-old or a 21-year-old. And so there is some expectations I have of you. Just like there ought to be some expectations you have of me, right? I mean, when you come here on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I would hope you'd have an expectation that I am going to teach in a way that you are interested in hearing and listening, and I would hope that would be an expectation of yours. I mean, it is of mine. I want to be like that. So, if you've been blessed by God early in life, certainly to a greater degree, much more is required, and I hope you won't forget that. I hope that lives long into your memory. And again, however you were conceived, God has a purpose for your life. And He gave you life so that you could fulfill the desires of God's heart. And so have I. So that was yesterday. Well, today we turn the page, literally, and we're talking about not yesterday's birth. Today we're going to talk about His bride. His bride. And this, I really do think, I think every day what we're going to talk about is important. But I think today and tomorrow are really, really important for you, your age, to hear what we're going to talk about. Because this is where you are in life. I mean, you've already been born 18 years ago. But what we're talking about on Tuesday is where you are in your life. And so we title our lesson today, His Bride. He had an eye problem and an eye problem. He had an eye problem with an eye problem. And boy, let me tell you, if you have, and some of you have that in here, by the way, if you have a me self problem and you have a lust problem, boy, those two combinations don't work well together as far as in being virtuous and godly. And so such was the case with Samson. His life as he grew up and as he's sort of venturing out, and now he's at marrying age, we're going to see real quickly, it's all about him. It's all about self. And we're also going to see he had wandering eyes. He had lustful looks. So that's where we're going today. I want you to know that what you do early in your life is going to set a pattern for what you either struggle with or enjoy later on in life. I'm just telling you, that's why what we're going to talk about this morning is so important. Because you have just now begun, perhaps at 14, 12, 15, you began choosing a lifestyle, a life pattern. And those things that you begin to choose in life, you're going to create a habit or a pattern towards those things. For instance, I won't mention which of the three children of ours, but when one of the three children, when they were young, maybe a couple years older than Kason young, but when they were very, very little, their room was a wreck. Okay? It was a wreck. I mean, stuff everywhere, and it was a constant tug of war between mom, dad, and the child of keeping their room neat and clean. Now, why was that important to us as parents? Because we understand that what you're doing right now at a little age is going to be something that's going to carry over for when you're a teenager and when you get married and beyond that, right? I mean, if you cannot develop good patterns, good habits at a young age, it'll be something that you struggle with the rest of your life. So it is important, and by the way, this child of ours still struggles with that in their surroundings. Okay, all right. So I'm not gonna say who, but matter of fact, it may apply more than just one child. Come to think about it. So anyhow. I mean, we got a daughter-in-law and a son-in-law back there right now, and I guess they can sort of have a conversation between the two of them. Which one is he talking about? My spouse or yours? Or both? But I mean, that is true. I mean, listen, if you don't make, and this is so minuscule. Is that the word I'm looking for? Probably not minuscule. That's what's in your knee. This is so minuscule. Meniscus, that's right. I was right. Meniscule, I was right. Whatever. This is so small and insignificant. How's that? Yeah. So I can understand myself. I mean, look, making your bed. How big really a deal is that? I mean, you're going to be back in it in what, 7 hours? I mean, what's it going to make a difference if you're going to make your bed? But I'm just saying, making your bed, that's a big deal. You know why? Because you're setting patterns of neatness for the rest of your life. Now, the truth is, nobody likes to make their bed. Nobody gets up in the morning and says, oh, yippee, I get to make my bed this morning. This is so exciting. As a matter of fact, when I just finished making my bed, I'm going to go down to my brother's room and see if I can make his bed, because I love to make beds. And I want to be a hotel maid someday in life. That's what I want to do. No, nobody does that. And so, but what making your bed does, obviously, is it teaches you, it trains you to do something you don't like to do. You don't want to do, but you ought to do it. You need to do it. That's the beauty of math class, too, by the way. How many of you have asked this question, right? When am I ever going to use this in life? Every time you have math class, right? I mean, you know what? That is a valid question to ask because you're not. You're not going to use this the rest. But you know why I think math is the greatest class to take by way of forming character. Because it forces you to answer those 15 questions that is so insignificant in your life. You don't want to do it, but you got to do it because somebody else is telling you, requiring you to do it. Let me tell you, that is life. You go out there and get a big boy job or a big girl job, there's going to be people that's going to be telling you, hey, I want this, and then you're going to have it by at a certain time that they want it. And so it's the same way with math class. This makes no sense to me. I could care less about it. I'm not passionate about this part of my work life as a student, but I got to do it. I got to do it. And so you do it, and you get it done, so to speak. But the beauty of that is you are forming a life pattern that later on, when you don't like to do something, you're going to do it. You know why? Because you did it in the past. Basketball, same thing. I love sports for one of those reasons, because it teaches you life skills. It teaches you not to quit when you want to quit. It teaches you how to be scrappy and you want to fight, and instead of give up whenever your body is screaming, don't do this anymore. But you don't let your body tell your mind, your will, what it's going to do. You discipline your will to tell your body, this is what we're going to do. And I'm just telling you, that's life. And so what we're looking at today deals with life patterns, and this is what we're going to see repeated in chapter 15 and chapter 16 when we eventually get to Delilah. Why in the world is he with a ungodly girl in chapter 16? You know why? Because he was with an ungodly girl in chapter 16 verse 1, a harlot. Why was he with a harlot? Because he was with an ungodly girl in chapter 14. You see, you start making decisions that you might think, well, it's not really that big of a deal. No, it is a big deal. Because you are developing something that you are going to have to deal with the rest of your life. Pornography. Pornography. Guys, we love pornography, right? I mean, we love the nakedness of the female. We love that. Now, on the one hand, God created us for those kind of desires. Now, I'm not saying necessarily for the pictures on the phone or in the old school days in the magazine. Not saying that that's what God created us for, but certainly the devil has used a strength of ours for our weakness. And it's a big, and by the way, I mean, if God didn't place a desire within the guy to desire and want sexual activity, guess what? You wouldn't be here today. You know? I mean, if mom and dad, I know this is getting really gross for you right now. If mom and dad, particularly dad, didn't have that desire towards your mom and wanted to express that love, which God has given to married couples in a erotic, eros kind of way, you wouldn't be here. I mean, it is a God gift. But if you open up that caged lion, that tiger, before it's time, I'm just going to tell you, you're going to chase that tiger the rest of your life. So you better make sure that cage is locked, shut, tight, until it's time. When God gives you a bride, God gives you a groom, a husband. And then, hey, go after it. Get it on. That's part of the beauty of marriage, of married people. But don't do that. Listen, don't do that before it's time. Because I'm just telling you, you're going to develop a life pattern. Listen, you're going to develop a life pattern that's going to be chasing after you the rest of your life. and I won't mention his name because he is somewhat of a celebrity in the real sense, that I have gotten to know, and we have become friends. And he was telling me way back in his college days that he had an issue with lust. And girls were everywhere, in a sense, throwing themselves at him and his friends. Some were what we would call gold diggers. They were wanting to shimmy up next to him and his friends because they were going to make a lot of money. Well, he had a strength that allowed him to have a platform that he could have influence in. But the downside of that is there were multiple temptations he had to deal with. We had a conversation. We meet a couple times a week usually. We had a conversation about 2 weeks ago. And he's just real and transparent. I appreciate that about him. But he said, I'm 60 years old and I still deal with lust. He's been living with this for 40 plus years. Why? Well, because in your youth, what you do in your youth sets patterns for what you deal with in life. Okay? So, if you have a tendency to lie, guess what? You're probably going to deal with that the rest of your life. If you don't cut the head of the snake off. So, that's what we look at today in this chapter. Samson is beginning his life, and when we break out of the gate in the story of Samson, who we know grew up in a godly home, we see his eye problem and his eye problem. And it's something that will haunt him. And by the way, when we get in 4 days, he's going to die because of what we're talking about today. His death is going to be because of what he chose 20 years earlier in his life. That's what's going to kill him. Just like maybe some of you that either you or you have some friends of yours, they're probably not going to make it till they're 30. They're probably going to die when they're 27. You know why? Because you or they, a bunch of are getting involved in drugs, and you're forming habits, and that drug you think you're controlling it, but no, it quickly controls you, right? And then what happens? Eventually you can't get off of it. And eventually, in some cases, it takes your life. Where did it all begin? Well, because when I was 11 years old, I went back behind the barn and did whatever we did, and that's where it all began. And so, I'm not so foolish this morning. I understand all of us. Big and little, all of us, with the exception of Casey, of course. He's so sweet. All of us. Yeah, Kevin's like, yeah, right. Yeah, that's right. Sinners are just sometimes bigger sinners at times. But all of us have begun life choices. We have. Now, the beauty of it is, I'm 60. You're 17. You don't have layer after layer after layer after layer like some of us older people do. You just have a layer. Well, this morning, I hope by the end of our time together, you'll get rid of that layer. You'll determine to walk out of this this camp week and say, you know what? No more. No more. I am not only am I not going to do this again, I am never, ever, ever going to do this again. I mean, that's how determined you are in your will, because you recognize where this is going to lead and the path that you're going to be on. Samson, he had an eye problem. That is a self problem, right? Now, why did he have an eye problem? A self-centered problem? Because he was strong. He had this ability to, get this, he had a secret power. Literally. I mean, you talk about the Avengers or Superman or Marvel. I mean, this was the original. This was the OG. I mean, he had a secret superpower. And that is, he was strong. I mean, extremely strong. Stronger, off the charts kind of strong. I mean, we're talking Cole Porter kind of strong. That's what we're talking. Now, but here's the thing. And maybe you don't understand this. Where's Gabe? Where's Gabe? Come here, Gabe. I just may use you every day. I don't know. All right? Come here, Cole. You see, when I was younger and understood the story of Samson, I thought this was Samson. I thought this was Samson, okay? And so, obviously, but you know, in reality, this is Samson right here. Yeah, this is Samson. And the reason, thank you, former Samson, thank you, current Samson. Now the illustration certainly is this. The Philistines, the bad guys, they could not understand where Samson's strength came from. You know why? Because he didn't look like Cole Porter. I mean, if he looked like Cole Porter, well, obviously, where's his strength? Well, look at his biceps. Look at his triceps. Look at his glutes. Is this a glute? Is this a glute? Look, that's the glute. I'll tell you, I don't need an anatomy lesson. I can tell you that. So, anyway, triceps, biceps, all those. Anyway, so, but I mean, they wanted to know, where did his strength come from? You know why? Because he looked like Gabe. But the Spirit of God at times would come upon him and give him this. I mean, in some ways it was like the Incredible Hulk moment, but without the turning green and the big muscles. But yet he was empowered to do some incredible, stuff that to this day you can't do. I mean, we're going to read about tomorrow in chapter 16, verse, I think 2 or 3 or whatever, where he goes to the city gates and rips the gate and its post out of the ground and carries it up a hill. I mean, nobody can do that. I don't care who the strongest man in the world is. I don't care who the strongest man in camp is. You can't go up to a gate. Now, their gates were a lot bigger, kind of thing. But even like our little wimpy wanny gate we got up there, I mean, even Cole can't go up there and say, all right, I don't need a screwdriver or a whatever it is else that Cason has on his tool belt. I don't need any of that stuff. I'm just going to rip it right out. And I don't need a shovel. I'm just going to yank it right out. And then I'm going to carry it all the way down to Highway 12, 20, something like that. Whatever this road is way down there. But they couldn't figure out where to get his strength from. Why? Because he looked like Gabe. But God gave him this energy, this power that truly was divine to do and work out his purposes. Now, that's a strength, isn't it? I mean, this is God empowering him to do a job. But you know what it became? It became a weakness. You know why? Because he could do whatever he wanted to do because I'm Samson. And yes, and I've got this ability. I just come right over here. If I don't like this pin right here, I'll just rip it right out. I don't want that there. And he could do it. That's the thing. He was arrogant and to the point that, yeah, he could actually do what he was talking about. And his strength became his weakness. And we understand that, don't you? I mean, some of you have a good last name. And it gets you in places maybe that other normal people, they can't get into. Or you're a great athlete. And so you're sort of given a little bit of a attaboy, attagirl kind of thing. And that could be a strength, but it could be a weakness too, right? Because now all of a sudden, people need to serve me. Why? Well, I'm a great athlete. My last name, you know what my last name is? I mean, you ought to be doing this for me. And your strength can become your weakness, can't it? Your strength can become your weakness. What was he? Because as I read this, and I read this probably, 4 or 5 times, these chapters, and I kept asking myself, why is Samson this way? Why is he doing this? I mean, and yet God continues to be upon him. Why does he keep doing what he's doing? And I've come to the conclusion because he was insolent. Insolent. Now, insolent just sort of means, and we know people at times who are insolent. They do what they want to do, and they don't care who they hurt, what it's. In other words, it's rude behavior because they can be. You know who sometimes deals with insolence? Bosses. You know who deals with insolence? Sometimes people that are in positions of power. They don't care about your feelings. You don't care about another person's feelings if you deal with insolence. You just want what you want. And it doesn't matter who you have to step over or whatever. There is a sense, maybe a sister term would be entitlement. You're just entitled. And you're entitled because you can be. That was Samson. He had an eye problem. It's all about me. Then you couple that with an eye problem. Boy, you got some problems heading for your way. He had an eye problem, and that was seen in his lust problem. You see that in 3 women in the storyline. We're going to be introduced to the first one today. 3 women in his life that had a very negative effect and impact on him. The first one is a love based on beauty. A love based on beauty. And that was his bride whom he chose. Why? Because she was eye candy. I mean, she was, wow. And he entered into this relationship and married her because of what he could see. She would look good on his arm. This was his trophy wife, so to speak. Doesn't matter what's on the inside. Doesn't matter that she's a Philistine, or as described in the scripture, an uncircumcised Philistine. That doesn't matter. I mean, I don't care if the guy's unsaved. I mean, he's good looking. I mean, and that's who I want to be with the rest of my life. I mean, the fact that he drinks and cusses and all like that doesn't matter. I mean, look at him. Look at him. Or the fact that, that she is I'll try to clean it up. The fact that she is sexually promiscuous, and and has got a reputation of being with all the guys. I mean, that's okay. I mean, she likes me and she wants me and I want her, and she's beautiful outside, not ugly inside, right? Yes. Pardon me? That's right. Yes. So this bride from Timnah, we don't have her name. Her name is never given. We can speculate about that. Then he hooks up with a prostitute in chapter 16 and verse 1 in Gaza. And so we have lust outside of marriage. And then we have a third example of his lustful eye problem, and that, of course, is Delilah. And this was a love interest that was unresponsive. It could be, and some commentators believe it was true, that he really did love, in the truest sense. He cared about Delilah. But Delilah had no love interest, true love interest in him. And because, as we're going to look in that story, why in the world are you still around this gal? I mean, can't you not see after the second or third time what she's doing? I mean, why are you still there? Why didn't you just give this girl her cancellation of her subscription? I mean, why are you still together? You know, and it quite possibly was. He may have truly loved her, but she didn't love him. That love was unresponsive. Now, I want us to look in the text, in the passage here, about his eye problem, with his eye problem. And I want you to notice it shows itself in three ways in this chapter and a half. The first way we see his eye problem evidenced is how he chooses, or how he chose his bride. How he chose his bride. And if you got an eye problem with an eye problem and it's time to choose a bride, this ultimately is going to be disastrous, probably. Because your ability to process and think and choose with, here's a good word, with discernment, that's out the window. I mean, the only thing that you're discerning is this right here. Comes through this right here. And if it comes through this and it meets this approval, doesn't matter about anything else. And so we see, let's read the story. We've sort of talked a lot about it before we actually get into it. Look, chapter 14. Let's read the first 10 verses. And I'll probably try to give some explanation as we go along with this storyline. Again, keeping in mind, life patterns early in your life will be something you deal with the rest of your life. And I mean that in a good way, and I mean that in a bad way as well, right? All right, here we go. Chapter 14, verse 1. And Samson went down to Timnah and saw a woman in Timnah of the daughters of the Philistines. Now, in our day and age, we'd just say they weren't God's people. In other words, this was a gal, a girl, a lady who was not a believer, was not a God-fearer, did not follow after God or godliness, unsaved. Oh, and that right there is qualification enough. Don't have anything to do with them by way of a deep, intimate relationship. And I'll say it again. I'm going to say that again and again and again. Listen. If that person that you're interested in is not a believer, and it becomes very evident in their lifestyle, they're not a believer, do not continue in a deep, intimate relationship with them. Because it violates the scriptures. Be not unequally yoked together with unbelievers. Don't do that. If for no other reason, because the Bible says so, that's why. Or let me translate it even a little bit better. If for no other reason, because the one that you truly love, or should, is telling you, don't do it. I mean, that ought to be reason enough, right? So he went down and he saw this woman of the daughters of the Philistines. And he came up and told his father and his mother and said, I have seen a woman in Timnah of the daughters of the Philistines. Now therefore, get her for me to wife. Now you got to understand culturally, right? We all understand, or most of us understand, back in ancient Israel, you didn't just see a girl, hey, we're going to go out down to Dairy Queen and go watch a movie at Pipestem. And then 3 weeks later, we're going to get married. Will you marry me? Okay, yes, I'll marry you. And all right, great, we're going to get married. That's not the way it worked culturally in their day, right? I mean, it was an arranged marriage back in their culture. Mom and dad went to another mom and dad and said, hey, I would like for my son to be married to your daughter. And we'll pay the dowry. There'll be a payment that you'll get. And okay, all right, that sounds good. So Kevin and Jordan, they see little Susie Q at church, and so they go to little Susie as a 3-year-old girl, and they think, she would be a good match for Casey. I think she probably likes tools, and he likes tools. I think they would probably be a good match. So Casey and Jordan go to Lady Susie Q and Mr. Susie Q and say, hey, we'd like for Casey and our son to marry your daughter Susie Q. Here's $20. And so the arrangement is made. They don't get married, of course, until 15, 20 years later, and that's when they marry, but it is arranged. So in that case, in most cases. So here it is. So he has to go back to mom and dad and say, hey, make this marriage arrangement for me and get her for me. Why? Because he saw, I have seen a woman in Timnah. And so verse 3, then his father and mother said to him, now here's going to be some resistance. Is there never a woman among the daughters of thy brethren? In other words, God's people, Israelites. And among all my people, that thou goest to take a wife of the uncircumcised Philistines? And Samson said to his father, get her for me, for she pleases me well. She, in other words, you would say, she looks hot. That's what you would say. I don't know if you'd say that to your mom or dad, but that's what you'd be thinking. Verse 4. But his father and his mother knew not that it was the Lord that he sought an occasion against the Philistines, for that time the Philistines had dominion over Israel. Now, I want to give explanation to this verse, because it would be very easy to take this verse out of context. Some people would look at that and say, well, right there, it says that God was the one that was arranging this and bringing this unsaved person and this saved person together, because he had this purpose of getting back at the enemy of his people, the Philistines. So evidently this is a God-approved thing. No, that's not what is being communicated here. You remember in Genesis 50 and verse 20, at the end of the story of Joseph and his brothers, and they go to him and Joseph unveils, hey, I'm your brother. And his brothers were the ones that sold him into slavery and beat him up and wanted to kill him. And Reuben said, no, don't kill him. Let's throw him in the pit. Oh, here comes the Walmart truck. Let's sell him to Walmart or Amazon. Somebody will buy him online as a slave. And so that's what they do. And yet God, get this, was manipulating the puzzle pieces in his time, because he needed a rescuer to be in Egypt to save the Egyptians and to save the Israelites from a famine that's going to be happening in 15 years. And so how did God maneuver things? He used his brother's ill will, sinful activity for God's good. Hey, didn't the Pharisees do that with Jesus? Was it God's will for Jesus to die on a cross? Yes. Was how Jesus got to the cross God approving? No. Sin is not approving of God. I mean, they beat him. Did that make God happy? God in heaven happy? No. But he used, get this, the sinful ways of people to put Jesus ultimately on the cross. And for that, I am grateful. Because if they accept him and love him, he doesn't go to the cross. If he doesn't go to the cross, guess what? You don't go to heaven, and neither do I. So God uses sinful ways and activities of people who are held responsible for their sin for his good and glory. And so here, at the end of the Joseph story, what does it say? 50:20, Genesis 50:20. You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. Okay? You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. In other words, this is all part of God's directing in my life, Joseph would say. And such is the case here. Was marrying this un-Philistine girl, was that right? Scripturally? Well, no, it wasn't right. But God used the lustful look in order to have an impact on the Philistines. So God is using this sinful desire, this sinful behavior, ultimately for his good and for his glory. And boy, isn't it amazing how God does that. Verse 5, Then went Samson down, and his father and his mother to Timnah, and came to the vineyards of Timnah. And behold, a young lion roared against him. And the Spirit of the Lord, here we go, Gabe. Yeah, God's going to come to the rescue in your life. You're dealing with this little baby lion, and the Spirit of the Lord came up mightily upon him, and he rent. That doesn't have anything to do with apartments. That means he tore, he ripped him, that is the baby lion, as he would have tore a goat or a kid. And he had nothing in his hand. Now the reason why that's important is because he's a Nazarite. A Nazarite. And a Nazarite, there were 3 requirements of a Nazarite. Number 1, he couldn't eat peanut butter and jelly because of the jelly. He couldn't touch anything that had to do with grapes or the vineyard or wine or anything of that nature. He couldn't touch a dead body because that dealt with decay. And he was sanctified or pure. He was to be. And so not touching a dead body or a dead carcass. And then thirdly, he didn't cut his hair. And the reason why he didn't cut his hair is because everybody else did. And if you didn't cut your hair while everybody else does, you're going to be noticed. You're going to stick out. And that was a way of being separated from people in the sense as unto God. It was an outward adorning of oneself, of a man, to show that I am separate as unto the Lord. I'm dedicating myself, my life for this season of this time unto the Lord. That was the purpose in the Old Testament for the Nazarite vow. So here, he what does he do? He kills a young lion, tears it in two. Well, he's not supposed to be touching a dead body or a dead carcass, yet he does that. And it says, and that's why it says he had nothing in his hand. Because he used his hands to touch the lion and rip the lion and kill the lion. It wasn't like a spear or his mother, what he had done. Now look, if I go out and kill a lion, let me tell you, I'm putting that on Facebook, okay? I am telling everybody that will be within earshot of me, hey, I killed a lion. Hey, I killed a lion. Hey, look at the picture, I killed a lion. He didn't say it. He wasn't going to tell nobody. Why? Because he knew he was in violation of his vow. that didn't matter to him. You know why? Because nobody else sees that. He cuts his hair. Everybody sees that. Isn't it interesting that of the 3 vows, or the 3 things that make up the Nazirite vow, he broke 2 of them pretty early in his life. Touched a dead body. And later on he's going to take a jawbone of a donkey, a dead donkey, again in violation. But what difference does that make? I mean, he's been violating his vows since he was a kid. And so he's starting a pattern. So but he wouldn't cut his hair because people could see that. You touch a dead donkey or a dead body, people don't necessarily notice that. Couldn't drink strong drink. Well, you could sort of maybe do that in private or with just a small group of people. That's something that'll come and go in that instant, and when the party's done, it's done. But if I cut my hair, that's permanent, so to speak, and it will be recognized for weeks and months. And so he would protect himself from that, of course, until the very end when he broke that last vow and he had his hair cut. Verse 7. And he went down and talked with the woman, and she pleased Samson well. After a time, he returned to take her and turned aside to see this dead body of the lion. And behold, there was a swarm of bees and honey in the carcass of the lion. And he took, therefore, in his hands, and he went on eating. And he came to his father and mother, and he gave them his coconut cream pie. And they did not, and they did eat. But here's another secret. He told not them that he had taken the honey out of the dead carcass of a lion. Secrets lead to more secrets, lead to more secrets. I mean, you start living your life in stealth. You start living your life mainly behind closed doors. You'll develop a habit of that and a pattern of that, and when eventually you're discovered, you're going to be shamed. Verse number 10. So his father went down unto the woman, and Samson made there a feast. Interesting, it does not say his father and mother went down. I got a feeling because Reagan, she's not approving of Gabe's choices, and particularly of this particular hot babe in Timnah. There are 2 ways, usually, that we choose a bride. Oh, my word. Nothing? Yeah, I know. Frozen? Oh, here we go. Thank you. Was that me or you?
You. All right.
That is me. Thank goodness. All right. Okay. There's 2 ways we usually choose a bride. This is usually the way it goes. Of course, the first way is the person's face. We don't want to marry somebody that's ugly. Okay? I mean, if they look good, that's definitely an entryway into my life. Okay? Their face. Or we might put it, attraction. Attraction. So let's just briefly have a little bit of a discussion here. Is attraction wrong in a relationship? Yes? No? No? Just depends?
You need attraction in a relationship where there's nothing there.
Okay? You can have you have to have attraction in a relationship where there's nothing there. Says who? What's your name? Ophelia, who's on the Club Happy Meal list. All right.
If you don't like the person, how are you going to marry them?
Okay.
Is this like physical attraction or is this like emotional? Yeah, like what level of
This is physical attraction because that's what he's dealing with. He is like, he's attracted to her. So I'm asking the question, Ophelia, is attraction, physical attraction, wrong in a relationship? No. You say no. Okay? Anybody else want to say yes?
I say, I'm not saying yes, but I'm saying there's a caveat. Like that can't be the deepest thing about your relationship. Yeah,
Okay.
that can't be like the only.
Okay?
I feel like attraction is the truth first, but what really matters is their personality.
Okay? Pulls you in at first, but their personality and how they treat you is ultimately what matters. Grabs your attention. Okay?
I think it depends on how wrong idolatry
Or idolatry. Yes. Yes, right. Okay, all right. So you're saying that it could be a good thing if it is channeled in the right way, but it also can be a bad thing if it's channeled in the wrong way. Okay? All right. And I would agree in the sense that this sort of is a yes and no answer, isn't it? It is wrong if that is all that you're basing your relationship on is that person's beauty. I mean, that's wrong. I mean, there's got to be more to that relationship than just being a trophy wife or a hunk of burning love. I mean, there's got to be more to it than that. Now, I do agree in some ways that I do think God has wired us as that being the entryway into, hey, you know, have you seen Gabe? Have you seen Gabe? That's probably not a good illustration, I know. All right, so you laugh. Let's pick somebody else. I'm looking. All right, you got sort of a girly guy kind of look. All right, so Keaton. So you look at Keaton and you're like, hey, girlfriend, hey, you know that Keaton? I'd like to know him. You know, I'd like to get to know his email address. I'd like to give him his number. And so then, what's your name? Mahala. So then Mahala is attracted, and Keaton sees Mahala and says, hey, hello. And so this is how you are drawn to one another. And I don't think there's anything sinful about that as such, as long as it truly doesn't go to a sexual desire and an attraction like that, where we're dealing with body parts, and et cetera, you know. That would be vanity, emptiness. But I do think it is a... So yes, is it attraction wrong? Yes, if that's all you're going to base your relationship on. But no, it's not wrong, because in a lot of ways God has designed us as physical creatures, beings, to want to see and hug and hold hands and etc. But yet, that's what he's basing this relationship on. He just sees her, lusts after her, gotta have her, and that's what he does. Then we see a second influence a lot of times on marriages. And boy, get this, girl, get this. Make sure you are listening to what John is teaching this morning, because it is so true. And Holly would attest to this for sure. And so would Kevin. That not only is another's face contributes to attraction and choosing a wife, but the other's family also is important in choosing a bride or a groom, a wife or a husband. Because I want to tell you, is this not true, Kevin? Holly, is this not true? You not only marry Jordan or Jonathan You marry the family, right? Mm-hmm. Yes, you do. Yes. I don't even want to know what else you're thinking, but as long as you agree with what the statement is, that's right. You do marry the family. I married Shelley, and I married Shelley's family. Now, they might not have been too excited about that, but I did, and I was willing to marry her knowing that I was marrying the family as well. You choose your mate, not only the way they look, but in some ways who they are, your family's desires, their family's desires. That has an influence upon who you marry. Now, question, is it ever right to go against your parents' desires? They don't want you to marry Keaton, or they don't want you to marry Mahela.
I feel like personally, if they want me to marry a man that has no respect for me, they don't know. It's like behind the scenes kind of. I'm not going to stand for that. I'm definitely going to go with his desires. I don't love that person. I'm not.
What if they see things in him that you are blinded towards, and they're against this because you're not understanding? Trust me, I'm 25 years ahead of you, sweetie, and I'm just telling you, this guy is poison. This guy is toxic. He's just using you. Now, you don't understand it because you think he's great. And every now and then, he'll give you a ring or earrings, or, he'll tell you what you want to hear.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't want that.
I know, but you can't see that. But your mom and dad can.
Mom, it's on us.
No, I'm saying the opposite. Like, they want me to marry someone that I don't love.
Right, yeah, no. Yes. That does happen. Usually it's the other way around.
Yeah.
Usually they're not saying, hey, marry him. Usually they're saying, hey, don't marry him.
Usually, my family would be like, I don't think you're the kind of person I'm listening to from past experience. I know they see things that I don't see. But if they want me to marry someone I will personally see my personal life with, then I just want to take it out of
Okay? There you go. You'll be teaching the morning Bible study after I die, probably. That's right. You come up with that. Exactly. And what's your name? What is it? Bruce? Bruce? Like in Bruce Wayne? Bruce? Okay, Bruce. Batman over here said, it is not right to go against your parents' desires because Ephesians 6:1 says that we're to honor our parents, our mom and dad. But it goes on to say, in the Lord. So if they are desiring or asking something of you that is not consistent with God's Word, you have to disobey. Because your ultimate obedience is to your ultimate Lord. That's going to cost you probably. It may cost you that relationship maybe, even to that extent. But ultimately, your obedience is to God's Word. And so it would be, if your parents want you to marry an unsaved Philistine, you must go against their desires because God's desires trumps their desires. But most of the time we're not dealing with a biblical issue. Most of the time we're just dealing with just common sense that they have and you don't yet, and you should listen to your parents. Only if it goes contrary to the Scriptures. How to choose a mate, then how to lose a mate. We see how he loses a mate. Now from here on, I'm just going to tell you the rest of the story because of our time. How to lose a mate. He goes to the wedding, and at the wedding, there are 30 soldiers that show up at the wedding at the invitation, probably of Lady Timnah. And this was common in weddings back then as well, to have some kind of security, perhaps, particularly when you're dealing with a foreigner, Israelite, and with the Philistines. You know, you got two enemy camps here. So some security was brought in. 30 army men, Marines, came to the wedding. Well, because Samson has secrets, he says, hey, fellas, let's play a game. I'm going to give you a riddle. And if you can guess the riddle in 7 days, I'll give you 30 garments. And if you can't guess the riddle, guess what? I want your clothes. All right? So this is going to be a game of who gets whose clothes. Now, again, I'm asking my question as I'm studying and reading through all this. Why? What's the purpose of this? You know why? You know why Samson did this? Because he's Samson, right? I mean, he's insolent. He's arrogant. He's entitled. He's cocky. He's a show-off in some ways. And so he's going to do this because, well, he can. They're never going to get the answer. And I'm going to get richer. So he gives this riddle. And the riddle was, out of the eatery comes that which is eaten. That's sort of would be our translation of it. And they're like, I don't know what in the world, what is that? And so they schemed, they tried to figure out what, I don't know. I don't know. Days go by, anybody got an answer? I have no idea what that means. I know, because look, if we can't get this answer, we got to give up our clothes. We lose. Let's go to Lady Timnah, and let's demand of her the answer. Let's get her to get the answer for us. I mean, she can just wiggle and jiggle a little bit and manipulate him, and Shazam, he'll fess up to her, and then we'll threaten her with her life if she doesn't get the answer. We'll kill her, and we'll get this answer by the weekend. So that's what they do. They go to Mahala and say, look, girlfriend, you're going to be in real big trouble if you can't get out of Keaton what the answer is. Matter of fact, if we don't get an answer, we're going to kill you, and we'll kill your daddy as well. Okay? All right? So I'm just saying. So here comes Michaela to Keaton, crocodile tears, of course, right? Please tell me, hey, what's that the riddle that you gave last week? What's the answer to that? Well, I'm not going to tell you. Matter of fact, I haven't even told my mom and dad. Oh, please. And the Bible says that she cried and nagged him with tears, and he told her, it's a lion. And so she goes back and tells them, it's a lion. And so the last day comes, Samson feeling very entitled and arrogant. You got the answers, fellas? It's a lion. Oh, I see how it is. I see how it is. And he says in verse 18, well, look, you all didn't play fair. If you would not have plowed with my heifer, that's what he says, yeah. If you wouldn't have plowed with my heifer, you wouldn't have got the answer. So he gets angry, and he goes out. He says, okay, all right, if that's where it's going to be, fellas, okay, you'll get your 30 pieces of garments. So what does he do? He goes out of town. He storms off the wedding festival. He storms off, and he goes and he kills 30 Philistine warriors and gets the armor off of them, again touching a dead body, but he doesn't care. He's so mad. He gets these 30 garments and he brings them back and says, there's your 30 garments. You do me like this, there you go. What do you think about that? And he's angry, and stomps off and he goes home. And he leaves Mahala, his bride, behind. And his dad is like, what is going on? Where'd he go? Where is he ever going to come back? And eventually Mahala and, what's your name? What? Hayden. Aiden. Which is Keaton's best friend at the wedding. She's like, hey, where'd your best buddy go? I don't know. Hey, you want to get married? And so she, Timnah, marries his best friend. Well, you can imagine that didn't go very well, right? Well, after about 2 or 3 months of being away, unbeknownst to Samson, he's back home, left his bride behind. Well, he's starting to get some urges, right? Because somebody that has an eye problem and an eye problem is probably not going to make very good choices at times. So he has some sexual urges, and he said, you know, I want to have some sexual pleasure. I have a wife. I'll go back and I'll bring flowers and sort of make up to her that way. And so he brought, like that would really turn her on, right? So anyway, and the dad says, hey, what are you doing? Well, he says, I'm here to consummate my marriage. Marriage? What are you talking about? My daughter married Aiden. Well, that went through him, right? He is really ticked off. He said, well, I'm going to tell you something. What I'm about to do, I'm not held accountable for it. I am so mad. And what happens is because of his anger, in losing a bet, he lost his bride. Isn't that true sometimes? That when we lose our cool, it costs us more than what we really want to lose. Now, let me give you the rest of the answers. Okay? Exactly. Yes. Here we go. You write fast. What destroys a relationship? I'm asking. What destroys a relationship? Just of what you've heard about the storyline. Okay, you say anger? Emotions? What? What? No trust? Ego? Pride? What is it?
I said they're giving good answers.
They are giving good answers. And all of these answers filter into the answer.
Sin.
Well, okay, not quite that big of an answer.
Around the pole.
Drum roll.
Isn't that true? I mean, selfishness absolutely destroys relationships. I mean, the reason why you broke up with your boyfriend is probably because he was selfish. Or the reason why he broke up with you is because you were selfish. Or the reason why you broke up with each other because you both were self-centered. And it was all about you. So, what destroys a relationship? Self-centeredness. Well, in this storyline, it was evidenced in 2 ways. It was evidenced in materialism. Hey, I want those 30 garments. And from her side, she was selfish because, well, she didn't want to die or didn't want her dad to die. And so she went to him and begged and begged and begged and manipulated him. So through materialism and manipulation, we see self-centeredness in this case. Secondly, big point, in that he hid the truth. He had an eye problem with an eye problem in that he hid the truth. And we read that in verses 5 and 6. Why did he have secrets? Well, because this was the pattern that he is starting to choose in his life. He was a Nazirite. A Nazirite vow, Numbers chapter 6, tells the 3 prohibitions. We talked about this. No drinking alcohol, no touching a dead body, and no cutting your hair. Why no drinking alcohol? Because it does not allow us to be sober in judging. So, no drinking alcohol allows us to be sober in sound judgment. No touching a dead body because obviously decay, that which is demoralizing in some ways. It shows sanctification. And why no cutting hair? Because it separates you from everybody else in society, that something's different about you, and it's very obviously, it's very visible, it's very seen. He is in a vineyard killing a lion, yet he did not choose to cut his hair. Isn't that something? Didn't care about the wine part, didn't care about the touching of a dead body part, but boy, don't cut my hair. Why did he do that? Because to have cut his hair would have been outwardly noticed or noticeable, right? I mean, he can't hide that. He can hide touching a dead body. He can hide going out and drinking to the point of being drunk or whatever, perhaps. But you can't hide cutting your hair. Too often, boys, this is not true. Too often we're willing to compromise what people won't see, but not what people do see. That is a great statement. And that is so true. Too often we're willing to compromise what, well, people aren't going to see this. I know it's wrong, but people aren't going to know this. But I'm certainly not going to do something that is noticeable outwardly that people do see. You know what this is called? Yeah, that's what it's called right there. Hypocrisy. You start living like this, you're a hypocrite. Because the outside doesn't match the inside, or the inside doesn't match the outside. That's hypocrisy. Lastly, he had an eye problem in how he responded to loss. Again, it was all about himself, right? I love this statement. And I have to work on this at times. How we win shows part of our character, but how we lose shows it all. So this Friday, you campers are going to have an opportunity to show us all of your character. So, exactly. Because of his anger, he lost. What did he lose? He lost. He had material loss, 30 garments. He had marital loss or marriage loss. He lost his bride. He lost a bet, and he lost his bride. Wow. Every time, know this, every time we lose our cool, we always lose something. You lose a car, you lose a testimony, you lose a relationship. Every time you lose your cool, you always lose something. About 4 weeks ago, a friend of mine in our church, been attending for 3.5 years with his mom, 62 years old, he lost his cool. He was irritated with the guy behind him driving down I-71. He had a gun, that is, my friend had a gun, and he just brandished his gun driving down I-71 because he was so irritated with the guy that was driving in front of him. He passes him, and the guy follows him. The guy calls 911. He comes up to the exit where our church and our house is. He turns left. That is my friend. He sees a bunch of police officers in the cemetery there, just close to the house. So he turns around and he comes back in the direction of the guy who he had brandished the gun towards. Again, he points the gun at this guy, stranger that he's irritated at. Unbeknownst to my friend, the other guy also had a gun. He kept 911 on the line, and when my friend pointed the gun at this stranger, the stranger pulled out his gun, and right there on the overpass, shot him 3 times, I believe, and it killed him. Now that's an extreme illustration, isn't it? Of when you lose your cool, it'll always cost you something. And literally in this case, it cost him his life. What a poor exchange, right? I mean, you lose your life just because you're irritated with somebody driving the way they are. How pithy. Now, the end of the story, or the part of the story I didn't tell you, which is even more sad and tragic, my friend whose life was taken from him, when he brandished his gun, he had no bullets in his gun. He was just trying to intimidate the other guy. You know why? Because he had been drinking. My friend had been drinking. And all those things went together on that Saturday night, and he died. You know why? As we started at the beginning of the lesson, because the life choices that he made early in his life, he kept having to fight those the rest of his life. Three questions I think we need to ask. Number one, is this an action I will be proud of years to come? Is what you're doing, what you're choosing, is this something you're going to be proud of in years to come? Secondly, is this pleasing to the Lord? Is this pleasing to the Lord? And lastly, am I in control of my reactions? Lord, there is so much to cover today, and literally, I believe, Father, we could be here for 3 hours, literally, going over just this chapter and a half. I pray that you would use some of the things that we've been able to make expressively. I pray you would use that to help cause us to make good decisions in the choices we make. Whether it's the person that we want to enter into a relationship, or the choices that would honor or dishonor you. Help us today. We pray all this in Christ's name. Amen. All right.